1, 2.
Hey guys, welcome back to Inside Boxing Brain. It's Harry and I'm back for another video. But today I'm actually joined by Harris Hamid, who happens to be my younger brother, but also a big boxing fan. So I wanted to bring him onto the channel so that we could have a chat and just an open discussion about boxing, the state of boxing currently, any big fights that he's interested in or that you guys are interested in. Just a general chit chat. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment in the comment section below, and like this video if you enjoy the content. So with that, what's going on, bro?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the channel.
Yeah, man.
I've been a bit quiet recently, haven't I? Because I've been busy working. I've had a lot of stuff on, so it's always good to jump on and have a bit of a chat. So how's things?
Good. Things are good. We're active. We're blessed. We're happy. There's a lot going on in the boxing world.
Yeah. So are there any? Okay, here's a question. What's your take on the Conor Benn situation?
For me personally, I think anyone caught doing drugs in the sport, it's just down to morals.
Did you think he's guilty?
Innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, but would you say that failing a test is the guilt in itself?
Yeah. Well, look, if he's failed the test and it's confirmed, then it's confirmed. And then, you lose credibility as an athlete. So, that's what he's going to have to deal with. He's going to take the ban, and then if he can come back, he's lucky that he's got time on his side.
Yeah, he's young, isn't he? He's in 23, 24.
Yeah, he's young and he's hungry, and I think he's just made a mistake. I think he's been led down the wrong path. He's been in the wrong circles. He's taken this big fight. This is a really big moment for him. It's a career-defining fight. It's the history, it's the legacy, it's the parents, the family. It's a lot of pressure, so he doesn't want to lose. So look, he's made a mistake. He's a young athlete. He'll do the time for what he's done. Okay. And he'll come back. And
do you think a lifetime bans should be given in boxing as well? Because I mean, the listeners will know boxing is different to other sports like athletics, for instance, where you can legally take another man's life in the boxing ring, and if you're taking performance enhancing drugs which are gonna aid you in hurting another man, and you get caught, do you think it's fair to say that it was a mistake, or do you think that should be a lifetime ban? I'm interested to know what the audience thinks as well, so comment what you think about that question in the comment section. But what's your thought on that?
Personally, I think, that plays a massive factor in it, because, it's a brutal sport. It's enhancing your body, it's making you more dangerous. You're not in control of that. So I think like there should be harsher consequences and accountability from the fighters, because they also have a responsibility and a lot of influence. But in the same breath, I think that you can't take away someone's dedication or someone's discipline in a sport. So they're athletes at the end of the day. They're world-class athletes. They perform at a high level. So you can never take that away from somebody. That's what they do for a career. So personally, I think maybe a lifetime ban is quite a harsh sentence. Depending on the circumstance or the outcome. Because look, end of the day, if he got in the ring with Eubank and did the damage, and then it came out that he was on drugs,
then that would have broke the news.
100%. That'd be murder, manslaughter. That'd be a very, very slippery slope. Yeah,
and I don't know if you've seen the podcast. I think it's on Rob Moore's YouTube channel. Go check that out. It's a really interesting channel with some long format podcasts and discussions. And Eubank Senior was on that program quite recently, and he was displaying certain characteristics and behavioural traits which showed a man who is really suffering with mental health. Now, he was quite influential in the fact that this fight didn't go on. Do you think it was right for him to intervene and stop the fight from going on, given the fact that his son and Conor Benn had both signed a contract to say that they were happy to carry on with the fight regardless of the failed test or not. Do you think that, you know, he was just in doing that?
Yeah, I do.
What, as a father or
as a father?
I
I think at the end of the day, right, regardless of whether the contract was signed, like legally, they were obliged to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, like you've the value of your family's opinion is very significant.
Yeah.
So he's obviously listened to what his dad said, but I also believe that we only see what we are shown because you know he's lost his brother.
Yeah, Seb Eubank died, didn't he?
Eubank.
Last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was quite out of the blue.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Eubank Jr. has come out and said that his dad is really suffering. And in this podcast, it was evident. You're right. You know, you hit the nail on the head there. It was so obvious that he was really struggling mentally, because even down to like the way he was, you know, holding himself and the hand gestures and all this type of stuff that he was doing, you could really see that it was an act for him. He was performing.
It was an episode.
Yeah. It was like he was on performance.
Yeah.
So it was really weird to see him do that. But
he's grieving.
All things aside, if that fight does happen, how do you think it'll play out? Because I'll answer first, because I've did a few videos on this, because I did a build-up video, and my initial prediction and reaction was that I actually thought that Chris Eubank Jr. was going to lose the fight, and I felt that Conor Benn was going to be too explosive and carry too much power coming up the weight, because for somebody at 160, which is where Eubank Jr. fights, 160 pounds, they wanted him to boil down to 157. Which, if you actually look at Eubank Jr.'s physique and his body, he's got such a shredded body anyway. His body fat is very low. So what that means is that the fat that he has, it's all around his organs. So it's like, it's internal body fat. It's not like body fat which is held on the outside. Excuse me. So for him to get down to 157, he was going to have to lose water weight. So he was going to have to really dehydrate his body. And I felt that in a 12-round fight with a young, hungry fighter who's coming up weight and who subsequently has failed a drugs test, was going to be too fast, too hungry, too sharp, too energetic for the older Chris Eubank Jr., who I think is 33 now. So I initially had the prediction that Eubank Jr. was going to get stopped in the late rounds. But honestly, after I heard about this failed drug test, it was funny how I did a complete U-turn. Yeah. And I completely flipped, and I felt that, you know, equally, maybe Conor Benn was afraid, and that's why someone in his team... Now, if you haven't watched my video on Dr. Usman, who is Tyson Fury and Conor Benn's doctor, talking about how 90% of boxers are using drugs right now, go and check that out, because I essentially break down in long form exactly what he said in a podcast where he essentially admitted to his athletes and athletes that he'd worked with using steroids. So for me, it was a big sort of red flag, and it was an air of vulnerability, a chink in the armour, a clear weakness, because whether or not you've done it knowingly or not, the fact that someone in your team has introduced that into your system, into your camp, shows me that they're not fully confident in your natural ability. And if they're on your payroll, you're responsible for them. You know, as a boss of a business or as the main fighter in a camp, all roads lead to you. So I think he has to take responsibility for what's happened. But if the fight was to happen again, I think it's sad to say, but I think the momentum will still be with Conor Benn, because he's a younger, hungrier, more energetic fighter.
Do you know what? I think what no one's talking about, and this is an angle that I kind of saw, was that no one was talking about in the build-up how Eubank was not in camp. He wasn't going hard in camp. He was everywhere but camp. And
yeah, I seen that on the social medias where he was always out at dinners
he
and
was everywhere,
eating
but
burgers and having KFC at the Misfits boxing
and even in the face to face, you know, the gloves are off. Like Eubank, you know, has always had that cockiness about him, whatever, like the confidence. But I genuinely believe that, you know, Eubank Senior knew that the preparation hadn't gone into this fight, and I think the fact that Ben got caught for drugs was just a bonus to take away from the fact that he wasn't ready to fight Ben. He wasn't even prepared to make that happen. You know, and no one's talking about that. No one's talking about how Ben was in the gym, Ben was in camp going hard, and Eubank was out doing every social event he possibly could. Appearances left, right and centre.
So there's two ways to look at this, because as the news has broken, it's come out that Conor Benn actually failed 2 drugs tests.
Right.
And one of them was around May, June time. Now that's when the fight originally got made, and then I think he failed another one around August. Now, I personally feel like the reason why Eubank Jr. wasn't going all out in the gym and he was making it more of a publicity stunt or an act was because he knew deep down that the fight wasn't going to go ahead.
Yeah, I agree.
So he thought, I'm going to milk this situation to get as much publicity as possible, knowing well that the fight will get cancelled and it'll set us up for a bigger fight later on down in the year or in the future. Because it was very strange that it only got cancelled on the week of the fight. It got cancelled on the Wednesday and the fight was due on the Saturday. And it was very clear that when the A sample got tested and it was failed, shortly after on TalkSport, on IFL TV, and on a number of other boxing news outlets, it came out that Conor Benn had already failed a test, and this was the second test that he'd failed. So that shows to me that the promoters, the boxers, the camps, the governing bodies, they know what's happening, and they're just letting the fighters go through the motion.
But I don't think it matters that he failed a second test, because he was never going to pass it. There was never going to be a period or a window for him to get his system clear.
See, I think what's truly happened is that someone's really just messed up in his camp. Now, whether he's been taking it knowingly or not, I think someone knows that they've either been giving it to him or he's been taking it, and they've just timed it wrong. Whether they've mistimed it by a couple of hours or 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever they've mistimed it by, when Vada have showed up to do the drugs test, it's in his urine, it's in there, and they've found trace elements of it. So what they're trying to say is that the trace elements are so small that it's not even akin to doping, but in reality, trace element means that at one point there was more of it in your system.
Right.
So
of course, and now it's leaving.
Precisely that.
Traces.
And he got busted for clomiphene or clomid, which most people in the bodybuilding game will tell you that it's used as, it's a PCT drug, so a post-cycle therapy drug. So once you've taken a performance-enhancing drug or a steroid, your natural testosterone levels in your body, they just shut down. And what clomid does, it kicks your balls back into action, basically.
Right.
So your balls are like diesel engines. It's always easier to just keep them ticking over than it is to completely shut them down and then restart them again. So clomid is used to kickstart that testosterone production inside the body. And for him to get busted for it, it shows that he's either been on a more harsher substance and then this is used to mask it and get his testosterone levels back to an average or appropriate range, or
he's been abusing it for a long time.
He's been abusing it for a long period of time, and you know he's been getting away because of the advice of this Dr. Usman and other people within his camp who have just timed it really well.
He timed it wrong, unfortunately.
Yeah, he timed it wrong.
Timed it wrong.
But how mad is it that we've not even heard anything from him in 2 months?
I think he's got nothing to say. He's got nothing to say, and he's been caught red-handed. That's it. You know, he will come back from it, depending on his outcome. But you know, I'm not too, you know, I'm not too like sure on what the consequences are for drugs.
Do you think he's lost all his fans?
I don't think he's lost his fans, all of his fans, no. I think what he's done is actually just make a mistake as a young man. And I think a lot of people will actually empathise with him for the mistake that he's made. I think he has every opportunity to resurrect it. But I will say he might have potentially ruined his professional career. Yeah.
So what do you think about... Because anybody who's followed Conor Benn's career will tell you that his career has gone up and down, and up until a point where he almost looked vulnerable, and then all of a sudden he became very aggressive and a knockout artist.
So, and that says a lot.
That says a lot. It says a hell of a lot. As we carry on, do you think I should plug in the camera?
This ghetto ass.
I've just ruined the fucking podcast. That's what we're talking about.
We were talking about Conor Benn.
Dead podcast.
But I mean, look, he will come back from it. It just depends on his ban, to be honest. It depends on the consequences. It depends on, you know, what the board say. And, you know, he has to deal with the consequences of it, to be honest. Do you think he knew? Do you think he knew?
I think he probably did know that he was going to get busted for it, because he'd failed a test earlier on in the year, which he just kept really quiet.
No, but do you think he knew? Do you think it was someone in his team, or do you think it was consciously his decision to say, do you know what, this is what I'm going to do?
No, I think it was someone in his team who just said, look, take these supplements and it'll help you improve, take this, take that. And he was just like, yeah, okay, cool, I've got a dietitian who's doing this for me and that's why I'll do it. So I think that's the root cause behind it. But we shall see, see. But to wrap up, it'll be interesting to see exactly what he comes out with when this verdict from this case happens. I'm interested to know what the audience thinks in terms of, do you think he's innocent, do you think he's guilty, do you think his lack of appearance on social media and the social scene is an indication of him being guilty? And if so, do you think he should be banned forever? Thanks for joining me on the podcast. It's Harry from Inside Boxing Brain. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Drop me a comment in the comment section below and like this video. We're going to be back for a lot more interesting conversations, videos, long format discussions, talking boxing, talking fights, talking predictions, reactions, all things boxing. So yeah, we'll be back for another video very soon.
Peace.